Good evening. Welcome to Town Council public hearing and regular meeting, March 21st, 2019. Can I get a roll call?
Buckles present.
Holloway present.
Bennett present.
Diamond present.
Rosen present.
Birch present.
Let it be known we've established a quorum. We'll stand for a moment of silence and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, up first, we've got a public hearing. Part A is an application of conditional use permit to allow an accessory dwelling on a unit at 615 Monroe Avenue, tax parcel A3-1-243B, and the other is proposed text amendments to the Cape Charles zoning ordinance, Article 4, Section 4.51, adding a mixed-use designation to the table of parking standards and regulating the minimum of off-street parking requirements for mixed-use development, and Article 4, Section 45F1K, adding a requirement that new mixed-use developments delineate residential parking spaces with public signage. Do we have anybody signed up to speak for the public
The
hearing?
people that signed up on the public hearing actually noted other items, so no comments on the public hearing, they're all for regular meeting.
Okay. Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recognition of visitors, presentations, and recognitions. Up first is Eastern Shore Spay Organization, Sandy Mayer.
Working? Yes, no?
That's all.
Yep.
Great. My name is Sandy Mayer. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of Eastern Shore Spay Organization. I'm here to request $1,500 to be able to continue our low-cost spay neuter clinics and provide reasonable rates for spay neuter services to Cape Charles and the Lower Eastern Shore. We also provide trap, neuter, and release services for feral cats and community cats, hopefully to reduce the community cat population. Matching funding is available to us through an organization called Two Mods. They are out of New York City, and if we receive money from a municipality or an organization as such, they will match our funding, so we would end up with $3,000. We bring the PETA van in monthly, bi-monthly to Sheridan, and then the alternative months are up in Exmoor. They have also problems there. We use PETA not because we're jazzed about PETA, but they're the only ones that will offer discounted rates for the Eastern Shore. For instance, a cat, a friendly cat, a pet cat, is $30. It's $50 in the rest of Virginia, but PETA offers us $30 for low-income area. And as opposed to the vet, a male cat's $250, and a female cat's $350, so it's considerable savings. $30 and $50. Dogs are $50 and $80 in the rest of Virginia by PETA. Rabies shots are $15. If a resident of Cape Charles or the local area cannot afford even the $30 or the $50 funding, we will subsidize. That's the other thing that we have to do. There are, believe it, there are people that can't afford $50 for the dogs. I mean, we had a recent incident where if the person had taken advantage of the $50 and the $15 for rabies, perhaps we wouldn't have had that rabies scare a couple weeks ago. To date, we have done 1,100 cats. And I don't know, and 300 dogs. 580 pet cats, and 520 community cats. We've also transported up to, I think, 200 cats to Virginia and the area. We've been working with PetSmart charities, or PetSmart adoptions in Chesapeake. They've accepted up to, I think, 20 animals, 20 cats from us, where they've been successfully readopted. Okay. People, dogs, cats, rabies. Okay. I thought maybe some of you are wondering how I got here to this. We bought a property 212 Bay Avenue in 2010. In 2011, through a lot of different renovations, we converted it into a bed and breakfast, and then bed and breakfast for, I think, 5 years on Bay Avenue. 2011, one of the employees at the Public Works called me and said, "Sandy, there's kittens in the woodpile." I'm like, "Yeah, really? Woodpile? Okay, what am I supposed to do?" They know I'm weak, so I went and I collected up the kittens. I brought them over to Virginia Beach SPCA because the Eastern Shore SPCA will not accept kittens or cats or dogs or any animals from us. They won't help us in any way. They won't even take reservations for our feral cats. They have a feral, they bring in the Virginia Beach van. But they don't even work with our feral cats. They said, "We've got our own cats in the upper shore, and you take care of your own down where you are." So, anyhow, so I went and I got rid of the kittens, and there were 5 or 6 other cats. I had them spayed and neutered. These cats were living out of the dumpsters behind Rayfields or whatever. So I returned them to the area, and what happens is when you do trap, neuter, release of feral cats, there is a certain amount of maintenance involved. So I've been feeding these cats ever since. At my own expense, and the shelters provided are at my own expense. We don't really do shelters. Right now they're kind of living in the woodpile. Hopefully when the golf cart path is completed, I understand that's hopefully going to be, something's going to go on this year, more of a little bit of a shelter or a community cat area can be established back there, because the Public Works doesn't seem to mind us, and they're very cooperative and very nice. That started with one area. Then Pete Bauman, who was in the back now, who was our president, he said, "Sandy, the trailer park cats really need some help." And I said, "Yeah, really." What happened was we used to have a trailer park in town. We got rid of the trailers, we got rid of the people, and they left 10 cats. The cats were quasi-friendly. There was no reason for them to be destroyed. Pete worked very hard, and I helped him to get the cats spayed and neutered, and we maintained them for many years. They still exist. They're still in the area. They're friendly. They're nice cats. There's really nothing wrong with them, but that's how all that came about. I mean, inadvertently, you end up trying to help and trying to do the best you can. Joy Pelletier, Bad Girls, knew that Pete and I were trying to work with the local cats and trying to reduce the cat population. You reduce the cat population with spay, neuter, and release because there are no more kittens. They stop eating out of trash cans, and they stop causing trouble in town. Joy Pelletier introduced Pete and myself and another lady called Cheryl Klein. We then formed in 2013 the Eastern Shore Spay Organization. We tried to buy actually did buy, Cheryl took the money out of her 501(c)(3). She's a saint. She's no longer active as she became ill and is in assisted care at the moment. But she did buy a neuter scooter, and we were unable to get it going because we couldn't locate a vet that would work. It had something to do with transporting drugs and what have you, but we were never able to establish that. So that's the other reason why we went to the PETA, and we bring the PETA van in every month. The PETA van can handle 30 animals, 12 dogs, 18 cats, and only 16 of which can be female. And also, they also receive a rabies shot. We do a rabies and a shot clinic from 10 to 11 in the afternoon. The animals are checked in between 8 and 9 in the morning, and they're done early in the afternoon. So you can imagine it's a bit of assembly line to do 30 animals in one day. So, the truth is, we live in a harbor town, and we will have cats. We also have possums and rodents, and we do have rats. I've seen them come out of the drains on Fig Street, and if you go down by the riprap in the harbor at sunset or whatever, they are in evidence. The cats help to maintain the ecological balance between the possums and the rodent population and the squirrels. It is not advisable to round up all the cats and destroy them because they will come back. It's a proven fact that without cat neuter and release, if all the cats are destroyed, they will come back in force, bigger and better than before. So we work with trap, neuter, and release as the only proven method of controlling local cat population. We've got Heritage Acres under control. There were a lot of cats back there living in the woods and in the area. Those have been spayed and neutered, so they are not posing a problem anymore. At the oyster farm, there used to be a group of feral cats. They were bred around with kittens falling down the drains and all kinds of stuff. I think we were down to 8 cats. 3 of them have since either died or become ill, and I believe he's down to 5 cats now that he's David Monken is maintaining. Seabreeze has, as far as future work in town here, Seabreeze has 8 cats that need to go, that need to be spayed and neutered. They are living under the dumpsters. People feed them. Without a spay-neuter situation and being them under control, we're just going to end up with more cats. They're just going to have kittens, all that kind of crazy stuff. Another thing is, tourists feed a couple of cats and then they leave. You know, so they will, that's what happens very often. Sometimes tourists leave cats. There are a couple of cats that were dumped over on Plum Street. They need to be spayed and neutered. I found tonight when I stopped behind Public Works to feed those guys back there, there were 2 cats there that I had never seen before. So they would have to be trapped, spayed and neutered, to make sure that there are no kittens, that we don't increase the population, that we do have it truly under control. And like I said, people dump cats. It's really criminal that, you know, they're unwanted animals and they don't know what to do with them, so they dump them in town and figure out somebody will take care of them or whatever. It's just a sad situation. I recently had a phone call from the people at Stingrays. There's 2 ladies feeding 15 feral cats that are living out under the dumps over there, and they said, please help us. Please help us. We need to get these cats under control. We need to get them spayed and neutered so we can stop the cat population from growing in that sort of a situation. So, and I figured that maybe you guys don't know what TNR is actually all about. So I brought a chart to give you a clue. This is, we actually own 34 traps. They're not all as nice as this one. Some of them have heart traps, which are kind of fierce looking. But this is one of the more gentle ones. What you do is, this is the, you put your food, you put your food in here, which is, tuna is the best bet. Tuna will catch any kind of cat. Even if they've already eaten, they're very attracted to tuna. Then this side is set up, you have to pull both rings at the same time. And this little gizmo, whoop. And so the trap is set. When your animal goes in, they will come into the end here, where the food is, step on this little trap, and they're done. They're in the trap. We put a towel over the top of it so they don't freak out, because they're not used to being contained or anything like that. And then this animal is usually done on a Sunday night, because the clinics are almost always on Monday. Would be transported to the P van. Feral cats are, and the reason for the wire cage is the other reason, is that the techs, a friendly cat can be brought in a carrier. A feral cat or wild cat has to be brought in a wire cage. They back the cat into the corner, and they inoculate it they knock it out before anybody else has to handle it. In a carrier, the techs in the van would have to reach in and take the cat out. And nobody wants to be chewed up by a crazy feral cat that doesn't want to be in the carrier. So what they do is they back the feral cat up into the corner, and they will inoculate it before anybody has to handle it. The cat is then tested for FIV, which is feline AIDS, and also feline leukemia. If the cat tests positive for either of these, or if the cat is ill in any way, it will not be revived from anesthesia. It will be simply put down and disposed of. I don't know how they're disposed. I don't want to know. Anyway, then the cat's returned to the person that captured it. Females need to recover sometimes they recover them in the cage, sometimes they're recovered in pop-up cages. Females it's like a hysterectomy, it's a major operation. Females need to recover for 3 days. Males can be turned out the next day. But when the cat is picked up from PETA, it is still very woozy, very much under anesthesia, and cannot be let loose the same day, because it could wander out in the street or become prey to another animal, whatever. So we have several animals in town that need attention. There are lots of people that really need the service of an expensive spay-neuter clinic for dogs as well as cats. For whatever reason, we haven't had that much, as many dogs as this year as last year. I said we can do up to 12 dogs in a clinic and 18 cats and 16 females. What else? Anyway, after the animal has recovered, it's usually released into the same area where it was from. It could be transported to another area. That's about that, I guess. But I figured that maybe you guys didn't know what TNR was, so that's what trap, neuter, and release is all about. And it keeps the population growth at bay. I don't know what else.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
You said there were 580 pet cats and 520 community that you spayed last year. I'm just curious how do you differentiate? And so if it's a pet cat, do you then say to the owner, you make sure this cat's registered and get shots, or what's the?
If it's a pet cat, pet cats usually come in a carrier.
Okay, so somebody brings it.
Yes.
Okay, so the community cats, they go back out, but they don't have an owner of some sort.
Correct. Yeah, a pet cat is usually brought in a carrier, and it can be handled by the vet tech.
Sure.
There are community cats that are friendly as well that could go in a carrier. When we prepared the cats for PetSmart adoptions in Chesapeake, very often it's a kitten. We had Joy Pelletier had 6 kittens in her house. And we were just waiting until they have to weigh 4 pounds before they can be spayed or neutered. And they also need an extra shot of distemper. And we put them in as friendly cats, because we prefer not to do an ear tip. I've even been in PetSmart and people say, oh, it has an ear tip, that was a feral cat. I mean, you know, so the feral cats get the ear tip, so they are identifiable. They also have a tattoo. They also are tattooed,
Thank you.
so, yeah. Anybody?
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
1,100 cats, 300 dogs. Is that number from last year? Current year?
4 years, from
What was the
2013.
number, what was the number for the current year?
For last year,
For the current year in Cape Charles?
You
Got
know?
that number?
You say in Cape Charles?
In Cape Charles?
we could add it up, we would take it a little, or we could get that to you.
I would like to have that
And so
information.
it seems that if you're asking for 1,500, you get a match of 1,500, so that's 3,000.
Yes.
Do you have a budget that shows how many were, you know, spay and neutered and what the other money's used for? Just as a,
Well, we had to, Hank does that kind of stuff. We had, because the matching funds has to be allocated, we have to give them very specific information of what the matching funds are used for.
Larry was given what our actual expenses and revenues were for the last
Okay.
2 years.
okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Sandy, what do you estimate the number of feral cats in Cape Charles right now to be?
I wrote something out,
You were naming some of the locations, but I couldn't really keep up with them to see if that was gonna be the sum, or if that's just a few you were talking about specifically.
here's my, I got a note to myself. Yeah, we estimated there's 100 to 200 cats in Cape Charles. Yeah, there are some over by the tracks and some on that side that I'm not, it's like tonight, I told you I put 6 cats in the public works behind Rayfields. But there were 2 there tonight that I had never seen before. And so, to me, they're suspect. Where they came from, I don't know. They could have been dumped. They could have migrated there, I don't know what. But in order to keep the colony or whatever from reproducing, they would have to be trapped and spayed and neutered. That's, that's just a given. There's also 2 at the oyster farm that need attention. And there's 8 that are estimated at Heritage Acres.
I got that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're trying to help the people in the Eastern Shore get their animals in order. I mean, a dog can cost anywhere from $300 to $500 for spay neuter with the vet. There are a couple other options. I mean, I have brought cats over to Norfolk. It's $45 for a feral cat. During the winter, when we didn't have any clinics coming in, we brought several cats to prepare them for adoption, kittens, to PETA in Norfolk. And they charged us Eastern Shore rates, which was really nice. So, because they give us a break. They just give us a break because of the low-income area, so which is really nice of them. But like I said, we don't agree with PETA's policies necessarily. They're the only ones that will come here and help us in that way. So,
I've got a couple of comments.
yes, sir.
You may or may not know, but since the mayor's articles and stuff, been contacted from the Alliance of Animals in Maryland, or from people in Texas, has reached out and talking to me about cats. And the one thing I've learned, talking with these different groups that does the same thing that you do, they do not feed, and they recommend not feeding because of the bowls that's left out to attract other animals and stuff like that. From the lady in Texas I spoke to, they created what's called a barnyard cat program, which is basically they trap them, they neuter them, they release them to a farmer, the farmer takes care of them, and the cats take care of the fields. Is that something you've all looked into or tried to reach out? Because I think as long as you feed them here, more cats are going to come here.
That's not exactly how it works. There are the traps that we have, for instance. I used to drive across the bay whenever we had a clinic, a free clinic or whatever. I used to drive across the bay to two different areas, one in Chesapeake and one in Virginia Beach proper. And I know that those people do feed their ferals. But in any event, I used to drive over and it took several trips to pick up all the traps. And they finally felt sorry for us and they donated them to us, so we own 34 traps. I've lent them to Chincoteague for their spay neuter clinics and whatever. But I know that they do feed them. I know they feed their ferals. There are a couple of groups, but you see the problem is Virginia Beach has its own problems as well. There are some sites that you can go on and list the animals. That's why I said we've gotten 200 animals adopted and off the shore. I take it to Virginia Beach SPCA, and we've taken Chesapeake PetSmart. They do have their own farm and different kinds of I have a whole list of farm areas or different sites that you can relocate these animals to. I actually had someone, the 10 trailer park cats, I actually had someone that was interested in that. She's a visitor of Cape Charles, and I did pictures, I had their paperwork of their rabies and their vaccinations and everything, and I even had personality profiles. She wanted all 10 of them because she bought a farm in Chesapeake and she wanted them all, and just never showed up again. But I had all the paperwork and I had everything ready for them to go. And, I did check with farmers up and down the shore. I mean, it's not from not doing my research. I did try to relocate animals. It's just a very difficult situation. The farmers up and down the shore, they have their own already. They say, you're kidding. And, they have their own already, so,
I think it's a nationwide issue.
definitely. There's a lot of other studies, military as well, that say that trap neuter release is the best way to.
I don't disagree with that from all the research, and trust me, I've researched cats more than I want to.
Yeah, the sheriff's office actually agrees with us.
Yeah, for all research, it is, but you can't add the F to the end of it. You have to trap them, you remove them, you release them, and then you call it a day, and let the cat turn to it for yourself.
Well,
And I know that's hard for us, because that's the way we're brought up, but I think that the reality is that that process works the best. They take care of more rodents that way, because they're not getting fed. And so that's just my thinking, that's just me talking to
Well, even
these
though
animals, and this lady from Texas, and there's another lady from South Carolina. The list goes on and on. I mean, I really call. And
I think it was Jim Granger sent me an article that Disney World has their own set of TNR cats, and if somebody wants to adopt one, they can apply for that, but yeah, it is, it's everywhere, we're not unique.
Excuse me. Yeah, we've got.
Yeah, I know,
I'm sorry. Jimmy? Okay,
thank you very much.
okay, thanks, sorry.
She's got her 3 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Up next, inflow and infiltration issue. Barbara?
Excuse me, I had signed up just to make a comment on that. It would, cats, it would be
That's
like
under the
3
regular,
minutes.
that's under the regular meeting, public comments, we're not there yet.
Okay.
We'll be there in a second.
Good evening, everybody. Been invited here to talk about inflow and infiltration. And so that's an issue that, like all townships that have sewer system struggle with. It's just part of the process of collecting sewage and getting it to the pump stations and getting it over to the plant. There are two sides of the inflow and infiltration, and one of it is what comes into your system and trying to keep it from coming into your system. And the other side is how you handle it once it's in there. And as long as you can handle what comes into you, you don't have a huge problem. But if you can't, then you got a real problem then. So a little bit of history of how we got to where we are today. The I-9 issue isn't just about the pipes and the laterals and the mains of the sewer system itself. You've got the storm water, and you've got the water that stands in the streets. You got the pump stations. Anything that either adds pressure from the outside or decreases pressure on the system affects that system. So it's like the whole ball of wax, all the rain that falls on your town, how the storm drains are working, how your gutters and your streets are working, which is real important for us because most of our drain system, our storm drains in Cape Charles are actually on the surface. They're the gutters, the street gutters and all. And you see it washing down the street and then it drops in to the gutter and then it goes on out to the bay. Part of our problem is that a lot of our drain lines are old. They're old terracotta pipe, and they're all in what's called Orangeburg pipe, which is it's a black, it's wood and tar made into a pipe. And 50 years is about as long as it lasts, and we've got lots of them now that are 50 years plus. So these pipes, the terracotta and the Orangeburg, act kind of like a drain field in reverse. The water is just rushing into them, and we've got to deal with it. The problem there is that we don't own those. They're on private property. And it's hard to determine where they're located because there are no cleanouts. The new lines and all, we can get into a cleanout. We can see, right off the bat, the cleanout's PVC. We know that that's PVC pipe down below, or more than likely. So we can get down there with a camera and we can see, what's going on there. We can't get into an Orangeburg pipe or a terracotta pipe typically unless we dig it up, bust it up, and run a pipe down, run a camera down into it. And another part of the problem with them is that they not only run to the house, but they run into the backyards where the old privies used to be, back in the backyards. So you're not dealing with just the line that runs from the house to the street, you're dealing with the line that runs from the privy to the house to the street. And that's all, none of that is going to be PVC. It's all going to be terracotta, it's going to be Orangeburg pipe, and they're all terracotta. If it was installed properly, it's still fine. As long as there's not any more roots and stuff are getting into it, or water's running into it. But the pipe itself is going to last forever. The Orangeburg pipe is going to break down, over time. In 2004, we received a notice of violation from the DEQ. On August 3rd of 2004, Steve Thomas, who was our DEQ inspector over here at the time, lives up in Wilkesboro, great guy, came down here on August 3rd and saw 7 manholes in Cape Charles overflowing with sewage. And those 7 manholes would have been coming right up Mason Avenue, because that's where we surcharged when it rained. That's sealed time, sealed remember. So those were the good old days. And that's what I'm saying, when you can't handle the I-9 that you're getting, then you've really got a problem. And everybody knows it, because that's where it shows up. So shortly after that, in 2006, we entered into a letter of agreement with the DEQ. And the events that led up to that were, there were 17 sewage overflows that the DEQ was aware of from 2003 to 2006. And those are the overflows that we reported to the DEQ, so I would imagine there was probably another half again as many that we may not have reported. Mostly from excessive rainfall. So we had the sewage overflows. We had a notice of violation in 2003 for discharging of untreated sewage into the bay, and that's due to overflows. So the water comes up out of the manholes, runs down the street into the storm drain, and you're discharging into the bay. So with that letter of agreement, the town agreed to do smoke testing, which we did in 2006, and have an engineering study of the Mason Avenue pump station area, and then report back to the DEQ on those results. So so that was 2006. So at the time, Mike Cosby was the Director of Public Works, and Mike Thorns was the Director of Public Utilities. They both left pretty much at the same time, and when they did, I was hired as the Director of Public Works and Director of Public Utilities. So that's how I got here. And that's what I kind of stepped into. And my feeling was, it's about as bad as it can get, so I really can't screw this up, I don't think. You know, it can only get better from here. So, one of the things that we did, working on the I&I, for that letter of agreement was, we started metering the flow in some of the areas that, put a flow meter down in manholes and starting to meter flow in some of the areas that we thought might be the worst areas. And once we determined where the worst areas were, we sent closed circuit TV cameras down into those pipes to see if we could find any, issues. Also, there was a capacity analysis done of the entire system to see if the issue with the I&I was actually due to maybe an under-design of certain areas. Maybe you had too much flow coming into a pipe that was only 8 inches and where it should be 10 inches or something like that, which we did find one of those. The 12-inch line main that comes down Mason Avenue gets down to the Mason Avenue pump station. It was reduced to 10 inches and then back up to 12 inches for whatever reason. So it created a little bit of a bottleneck there. That's since been, we fixed that little item, and so, that doesn't exist anymore. So in addition to those 3 items, and still in connection with the letter of agreement, but because of the engineering study that was done, we raised 39 manholes. As the years went by, the streets were paved once or twice, and so most of our manholes were, the lid was about, anywhere from 3 to 4 inches below the grade of the road surface itself. So we raised 39 of them, but in order to do that, we had to find 26 of them because they were under the pavement. So we went out, with metal detectors, we found the manholes that we were missing, and we busted them out, raised them up, and then put the asphalt around them. Also, we installed nylon inserts underneath those manhole lids, which is just a piece of nylon, plastic, that you lift the lid up, you set this plastic insert down there, and you put the lid back over it, because manhole covers have holes in them so you can lift them up. And so the water goes down those manholes and around the edges and all. These vinyl inserts are meant to prevent some of the water from going down the manhole, so all of it doesn't go down there. So we did all the manholes, so there was over 100 of those inserts we put in. And we purchased a closed circuit TV camera and a sewer jetter so that we could inspect the sewer laterals. That was one of the things that we agreed to do, inspect all the sewer laterals coming down Mason Avenue. And the last thing that we did was we did house inspections for all the illegal sump pumps that were hooked up to our sewer system. And we had help from the building department doing that. They kind of took on that project, and they found 3 that were illegally hooked up and had them disconnected and run out to the yard or to the street, wherever the homeowner wanted to, run them. So then in 2010, the DEQ issued a consent order, which is like even worse than the letter of agreement. And but that was mostly tied to, we were still working on the letter of agreement and the infiltration issues. The consent order was mostly concerned with the old wastewater treatment plant, which was really, by this time, in really bad shape. We were engineering, trying to figure out whether to keep that plant and revamp it and bring it up to the standards that were being required, because the nutrient standards had just gone off the chart. And there's no way that that plant could be in its current state as it was, could not meet the nutrient standards. So we were going to have to do like a massive rehaul of that plant or move it. So, but anyway, it didn't come quick enough for the DEQ, so we were under a letter of consent, and it was because of the old wastewater treatment plant. It had bacteria in the effluent. It referred back to the LOA of 2006. Ammonia discharging into the bay, fecal coliform, and 27 other issues that had to do with exceedances of the limitations that you can have in your effluent for CVOD, suspended solids, bacteria. I mean, ammonia. We were discharging pretty much everything that we weren't supposed to into the bay on a monthly, on a daily basis, really. So we were ordered to, in that consent order, to complete the new plant by 2011 and submit quarterly reports on the progress of the plant and demonstrate that the collection system had been repaired to a point to keep influent at the plant at 95% of the design capacity for 6 months. So in 2012, we performed smoke testing again, and we fixed 51 sources of I&I. And in 2012, we completed the closed circuit TV of the remaining 80%. When Stearns and Wheeler first did the closed circuit TV of the sewer lines, we only did about 20% because we were doing the most suspect areas. In 2012, we went ahead and completed the closed circuit TV of our sewer mains, and so we got the whole survey, and our sewer lines are in good shape. And this is typical of one of the runs. That's what you get. Not only do you get the video, but you get these. You get a report of every section of sewer line from manhole to manhole in the town, and that's the kind of thing she gets. It's a great tool to have. We refer to it all the time, and what we were able to do with that was to go back to our old as-bills and compare that camera, that report, to our old as-bills and see how accurate the as-bills were. And what we found were they were accurate to the point where the original installation was accurate, and all we had to do was add what had been added, over the years. So, and it's been a great. That company did a great job doing those sewer lines. So we finished the closed circuit TV survey, and then from 2011 to 2014, I had a flow meter of my own and a rain gauge, and so I was looking, charting what we were, the flow that we were getting, and this is what I was putting together. This is manhole 28, which is at the corner of Pine and Tazewell. And the red line running through there is the rainfall, and the blue line is the flow that was coming through the meters. So you can see that one day where we had 1.5 inches of rain with the flow through the,
What year was this?
is the date's not on there? It was 2012. You know, I had a problem with the flow meter. It was a hack flow meter, and hack is famous for planned obsolescence. So when I had an error come up on my software one day, I called hack and they said, oh, we don't support that anymore. You gotta get a new one. So that was the end of my flow monitoring. But I have since, looked to get another one. I just, this year I'm not gonna be able to afford it, but I am gonna go back to that because it's very interesting to track that.
Got a question on that. 2 years ago, you gave us, the similar report was more recent than,
I probably have more recent. That was just one, I never read it, and that was one I
but
thought.
you had in there contradicted the rain versus the infiltration. At
It can
time-
do that, but for one thing, the flow gauge can be on one side of town. My rain gauge was sitting on the fire department's roof. It's not necessarily raining over here when it's raining over there. For the most part, you get a pretty good correlation like that, and it's not just in one manhole. It's town-wide.
Yeah, I don't know
You get
what
that same-
manhole it was, but you remember doing that before? It was like 2 years ago. It was like right on Canal Council.
Right.
That we went through this whole exercise before.
Well, I wish I could remember, I'd gone back and just got that one and brought it back in. I wouldn't have to have
Well,
it.
no, it doesn't look like that. That's what I'm saying.
Well, and I don't know, that's just one that I pulled out, yeah. We did that, we monitored the rainfall, we surveyed the town again for the sump pumps, went around and, checked, looked for all the basements in town, and then sent letters to the folks that we wanted to come in, look at the basements and see if their sump pump was up to the sewer system. We found 14 that were, and they were all corrected. And that's huge. I mean, the smoke tests, mostly what you see are clean outs out in the yard, blowing smoke out of them. Well, that, unless the yard is rated to that clean out, that's not a great find. I mean, it looks good and all that, but that's not really what you're looking for. You find a sump pump that's connected to the sewer system, that's huge. Especially if it's one like the one down on Tapple Avenue that runs constantly all the time. And that or a roof system, gutter system connected to the sewer system. Those two things are that's like a gold mine. That's what you're looking for, really. The other stuff is just kind of icing on the cake a little bit, nothing great, but you want to find them. But the things that are like kind of mechanical that are connected to your sewer system, that's what you're really looking for. So we surveyed for the sump pumps. Then in 2011, the Nason Avenue pump station was rehabbed, and the wet well was fitted with a fiberglass line to prevent groundwater intrusion into the wet well, because it goes deep. There's a lot of pressure on the outside of that wet well. And so we had a fiberglass line put in that. The 10-inch influent pipe was sized up to 12 inches, the way we wanted it to be. And the force main from the pump station was rerouted and increased. Originally it was 6-inch force main, and we bumped it up to 12 inches. So we can get rid of stormwater a lot faster now than we did before. And as a matter of fact, I had this here somewhere. Well, in 2013, the consent order was lifted. The new plant was completed. We demonstrated that the I&I issue was getting better, and they were satisfied and said they lifted the consent order. And since 2007, we've had 2 overflow events. One of them was in 2008 when the main over at the corner of Monroe and Plum, Whitebird was going into the pump station there, got clogged up with grease. And we had a small overflow there. That was in 2008. And in 2009, it rained 3 inches one night, and we had an overflow down Mason Avenue, and that was before we had resized that pipe going into the pump station. That's it since 2007. So, you know, we're working on, you know, trying to prevent the water from coming into the system, and we've done some good things. I mean, I don't know that we've ever really hit the mother load, but, you know, we've done things that should make a difference. And however small or large a difference we've made, you know, with each step, it's hard to say, but each one of those steps makes a difference. What we've done to get rid of the storm water, to prevent overflows, is easily, you know, you can easily see that, and just by the fact we haven't had any overflows. And so that's where we really made some huge progress, rebuilding both the pump station, Plum Street, and when we did Plum Street, we upgraded the pumps in there to where they have a higher capacity, because we were going into high water at Plum Street pretty often. And so we were looking at, you know, can we upsize these pumps, get rid of this water faster? And if we do that, can Mason Avenue, you know, handle the flow that we're sending to them? And so it all looked good, and so we upgraded those pumps, and now Mason Avenue pumps down a lot faster, even in a heavy storm, or Plum Street. And Plum Street, for whatever reason, gets about 75% of the flow of the town. Washington Avenue gets about 28%, or however the math works out. I mean, Washington Pine Street gets about 20%. Washington Avenue gets about 3 to 5%. I mean, Washington Avenue gets nothing. Plum Street gets the mother load, and Pine Street is, those say Pine Street and Washington Avenue, you really don't have to worry about, because there's enough storage in the collection system that they just don't have to work that hard. They're not getting that much flow. Plum Street, you got to keep your eye on, you know, all the time, because that's the one where all the flow's going.
These are the sewer flows you're talking about right there?
Yeah, sewer flows. So in 2015, we repaired 33 manholes, and the list of the repairs that were done to the manholes, it's about 10 different steps that they took. They went down into the manhole. If the bottom was bad, they would cut it out, re-pour it. They pointed up any kind of cracks or fissures or anything. They were surprisingly in good shape. These aren't like brick manholes like you might expect in Cape Charles. They were, you know, precast. So when they ran the system, they were all precast. They dropped in place. They got a seal in between the bottom half of it, the top half, and you know, they were in pretty good shape. The issues pretty much come from the penetrations in the manhole, and you know, so they packed all the they cleaned them all out, packed them with oakum, and pointed them all up, and so they did that. Then when they got to the top, a lot of the manholes appeared to us to be leaking around the collar at the top. So what we had them do was cut out a square around it, pour concrete in there, and seal up around it. And so we felt like we had a good seal at the top of the manhole. So I think a lot of our stormwater comes from the water that sits in the streets and just, you know, and it just finds its way down in that manhole lid. And so we kind of worked on, you know, trying to get the water, keep the water from coming in there. So in 2017, we upgraded the Pine Street and the Plum Street stations and patched up those wet wells as well. So, you know, when we went in there, we power washed all of the wet wells and went in there and pointed them all up and everything. And some of the penetrations we were able to close up. They weren't being used anymore. And where we did have a pipe coming in, we cleaned out around them and packed them all real good. So to keep the water from coming into those wet wells. 2018, we did another smoke test, and we're working on those repairs now. And I mean, that's pretty much where we are as far as what we've done. Now, what we're some of the issues that we have in town, are, I'm sure that we missed some of the sump pumps that are connected to the, sewer system. We're gonna go back out and do another survey, so we can find any that we missed, and some have probably been put back up, would be my guess. So we wanna make sure that we go back and just make sure that, we get all of those. The yard debris going into the streets is an issue where it clogs up the storm drains, and the more storm drains they clog up, the more the pressure builds up all around our systems, and the water, comes in. Now, one of the things back in Bay Creek, the vacuum system is supposed to be more or less impervious to inflow and infiltration. Well, it's not if the homeowner unscrews the cap on his clean out so that his yard drains and doesn't stay wet, or that his driveway drains and doesn't, stay wet. And it's a pretty common occurrence out there. I mean, present company exclude, sure, but it does happen. It does happen out there. So where we thought that we probably were getting no stormwater infiltration, we are getting some. Another issue that we have with that system, and I think it has to do with the water pressure, is the bottoms of these vacuum, the pits that every house has. Well, every 2 houses has a vacuum pit where your wastewater comes by gravity, goes down into a pit, and then it's sucked into the system. Well, the bottom of those pits, for whatever reason, have a tendency to pop out. We've replaced probably half a dozen of those pits, and it's just like, if you've ever taken a nail in a Coke bottle and shook it like that, and the bottom just pops right off of it, that's kind of what's going on with them. So, like I said, we've got one over on Kings Bay Drive right now that we've got to replace. And they're always right in the middle of the garden, nice little manicured spot. So we've got that's another issue with them. The issues that we would like to get to, and for whatever reason, they're either on private property or we just haven't gotten to them yet, are the old laterals from the house to the street. Like I said, we've got terracotta out there, and then we've got the Orangeburg pipes. And these lines, now today, when you build a new house and you're installing plumbing, or if you're just replacing the drain line from the street to your house, Jeb's gonna go out there and the whole thing's gonna be filled with water. And he's gonna make it sit there for a while to see if it leaks. He's testing for pressure. Well, back in the day, they didn't do that. They weren't worried about pressure testing a drain line. I mean, why would you? And so all this water pressure that's on these drain lines, it's easy for it to find its way in because it was never tested to keep it out. So those are the drain. We have terracotta that wasn't installed with a pressure test, and like I mentioned before, the backyard privies that are. There's still some over in over on Washington and Jefferson. You can still see them there. I mean, they're out there, and it was an outhouse that was hooked up to the sewer system. So when the plumbing was put into the house, that was just abandoned, and yet those lines are still out there. The Washington Avenue pump station wet well, when we revamped that one, which is not going to happen this year, but hopefully next year we'll do that. When we do that, we'll point that wet well up, and just like we did Plum Street and Pine Street. Like we'll be doing another sump pump survey. Hopefully at some point we'll be doing the closed circuit TV of the storm drains. We know that we've got cross connections between our sewer system and the storm drains, and that could be a biggie. We find one of them that's in a storm drain that typically gets surcharged when we get a hard rain. That's gonna be a lot of water, and that would be one that we can plug up and save ourselves a lot. We'll do further inspection of the manholes, and when I get a new flow meter, we'll do more flow versus rainfall surveys. Now, one of the things that adds to the numbers that I think are a little cause for concern, that the disparity between what we're pumping out of the ground and what we're running through our wastewater plant is that our reuse line, our reuse water that we use at the wastewater plant is after the water meter. So we really can't, whatever water we're using in that plant for processing or for washing down or whatever, any of that water that we use in the plant gets counted twice. I mean, it's being processed twice, so it should get counted twice. But that's going to be that's probably 50 to 100,000 gallons a month of water that we use that would kind of balance that difference out a little bit. So let me see if I've got anything. I want to show you guys this. This is the difference between this is a PVC pipe. It's not a great plumbing job because you can see the water standing in the pipe, and no drain line should have water standing in it, but it gets bellows in and all. But I wanted to show you all the difference between what a PVC pipe looks like after it's been cleaned out and what the old pipe looked like. Yeah, I mean, but it's really it's pretty. Now, none of those. These are all. What you're looking at there are the pictures that we took of the laterals coming down Mason Avenue. All the main lines that we had footage of are. I mean, they're just like they were put in there yesterday. And there were a couple of things. There was one place over in Jefferson Avenue where Lucas or somebody doing boring, I don't want to put it on them, but they're really not the ones that do it, had run a power line right through one of our lines. And we went out there and we fixed that. And then there was a place going down Mason Avenue where one of the gaskets in between the pipes, when they put it together, it really didn't seat right. You could see it hanging down, so we dug that up and fixed it. But other than that, I mean, our sewer system is tight. And like I say, I mean, the issues that we have are things that we're either working on or we're having a problem figuring out how to get to them.
Yeah, between the time you started now, the I&I, the numbers, have they changed much? Because we're sitting at this month with about 1.4 million difference.
Yeah, well,
I mean, have they come down with all this work?
yeah. I mean, they have come down, but the problem with right now is that it's been so wet for over a year that right now, I mean, the number's going to be high.
Well, I mean, they had the same problem after the Nesta did and all that. We had tons of rain back then, so I'm just saying, has there been a comparison, kind of roughly, to see where the numbers are flowing? I know you're gonna get fluctuations between dry years and wet years. But it just seems like, I don't know, it just seems like the numbers are either going up or just staying.
I would say,
For the last 6 months or so.
there again, I think it would be due to the amount of rain.
Yeah.
No, is the answer to the question.
Did you even have the capability in the old wastewater treatment system to measure the flow of what you were processing?
No. Yeah.
So how do you measure ionized eggs? Because you made a mention of that it's better. And I'm just wondering how you measure it. How do you know it's better or worse? How do you?
I'm going by the engineer's report from 2010. At that time, it was better, and we've done numerous things since then that, like I said, I mean, it's hard to measure what it is, but in doing those things, you know, it's got to be getting better.
Okay, and then you say if you haven't had any overflows, is that at the pump stations?
That's anywhere in the system. Your overflow is going to generally show out in the manholes, out in the street.
Well, I just want to get clarification on what you're talking about when you said you had any overflows. Because, you know, my casual observation of your reports monthly for the last 8 years have indicated that we've had a steady issue of, well, not 8 years since the new plant's been online, we've had numbers, but that the water production is almost always less than the wastewater production, whether it's wet or dry. And while we're doing great things to fix things, the last 2 months, it's been over 2 million gallons different. And, you know, it's typically over 1 million gallons different. So from my perspective, maybe we're concentrating on the wrong things, because, I mean, if we actually do have a cross-connected a storm line to a sanitary line, that should be the first thing you want to find. All these little things that are doing, nothing is affecting this number. And I appreciate the fact that there's 100,000 gallons a month used in the plant, but the plant, you know, that's figured in. What bothers me the most about this number, if it doesn't go down soon, is that this takes up the equivalent of over 600 residential connections. Not that we got 600 people waiting to connect, but if anybody wants to subdivide something and come into town and say, I want to hook up, they're going to look at how many connections we have available, and 600 of them are going down the drain every month because we've got I&I issues. I'm amazed we haven't had any more regulatory scrutiny than since the new plant's been on.
Well, I agree, and that's one of the things I'd like to do is survey the storm drains.
I think you have to do it, Dave. I don't know why you're waiting. I mean, you gotta
Well,
look
Steve,
for
I asked for it 5 years ago, and you laughed at me, said they're not our storm drains, why would we want to do that? So, I mean, I've tried, but
If you can't, are you able to?
yes,
Then you should do that.
I asked for $30,000, and I was told, no, they're not our storm drains, you're not going to do it. So, yes, I would love to do it. As a matter of fact, Larry and I have had this conversation, and we feel like it's important enough that maybe we look at doing it this year instead of something else that we're talking about doing, you know.
I mean, you mentioned 2 or 3 things that you said were big items, and those items are the ones I think you need to
I agree.
concentrate on.
I agree.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So Dave, one of those cross connections shows in this report you sent to us, and thank you for doing that, on the smoke test, right, this cross connection at Jefferson and Plum on the southwest corner?
Yeah.
It says storm drain cross connection. Can you tell us about that? It just says the notation under contract to have storm drain filmed with closed circuit TV. Can you
Right.
tell us a little more about that one?
Well, that would be, if we didn't do the whole system, that would be one that we
Well, that's the
want
first
to do.
one, it's right there, we know. That-
Yeah,
straight
and
lines.
then, you know, the thing is, I've contacted companies about it, and they're like, well, you know, that's kind of crazy, because in order to mobilize, you're gonna spend thousands of dollars for us to come over there and set up to do this. If you're gonna do it, do the whole system. I'm thinking, well, I mean, that may be true, but I'd really like to find this one, and so, if I can get the money to do the whole system, I would do it. If I can't get the money to do the whole system, I'll do this one. If that guy comes up and sits up for 30 minutes for $3,000.
What's the whole system, 30?
Well, here's the thing. In order to do the filming itself, it's about 20 or 25 cents a foot. The clean out of the system is what runs into the money, because that can be, you know, like $2 or $3 a foot. So if they don't have to do that much clean out to do these storm drains, then you're not talking about a whole lot of money. But if they've got to do a lot of clean out, then you are talking about a whole lot of money. So it's kind of a crapshoot. You really don't know what it's going to be until you get in there and start doing it. And this particular section, VDOT has always had a hard time with this section of pipe running from Madison to Jefferson, and then it goes across Plum Street from the west side over to the east side where the delicatessen used to be. And that, it took them like 2 years to get us through this clog of Pepsi bottles and Popo wrappers, you know, and I think they finally did it. But there's always been a real problem, you know, working with that stretch of pipe. But, no, I mean, I'm all for getting it done. Because I think that's one of the big pieces of the puzzle we haven't. Now, one of the things we're going to find when we go down there is the issues, and Larry and I talked about this, the issues that we have with the storm drains are issues that pretty much we caused by busting storm drains out to get water lines through, sewer laterals. We've done the damage to the storm drain, so when we get in there and we start looking at all of them, are we gonna go to VDOT and say, look, we busted through the storm drain, we wanna go in there and fix it, you know, which I guess we kinda have to do. We replaced, at the corner of Monroe and Pine, we replaced a section of storm drain that we had busted through with a water line when they installed the new water system. And I'd be willing to bet that at the corner of, it's true at the corner of Monroe and Pine, I'll bet it's true at the corner of Tazewell and Pine, and at the corner of Randolph and Pine, and Madison and Jefferson, and maybe not Washington, because they didn't go down that far. But they're all at the same, all at the same grade, and I'd be willing to bet that every one was busted. And that's probably why a lot of the town doesn't drain as well as it should.
Wasn't that the problem with our, Plum and,
Madison?
yeah, with the, you know.
Well, they had the storm drain going nowhere. It went
Yeah, that
halfway
was-
across Plum and stopped.
No, we finally got that figured
They
out.
fixed it, yeah, they fixed it. They found it when they were doing encouraging gutters, yeah. So that was huge.
Oh, that's the side that keeps,
That was huge. They found that just like, now that water, it may build up, but it goes way fast. And if you sit there during a storm and watch the water pour into that particular drop inlet, it's like a river going in there.
I know, I used to live over there. Watch it all the time.
Quick question on the smoke test. It looked like to me there was smoke coming out of 3 roofs, 3 separate roofs.
That's what
As a rule, a roof typically collects more rainwater.
Yeah.
And the runoff from the roof is pretty substantial. So if the smoke was coming out of the roof, these 3 structures, it seems to me these 3 structures is tied into.
That's pretty good evidence. That's what you're looking, and that's what you're looking for.
And so, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at, there's that, maybe the citizens and businesses of these places could do to stop water from going into our sewer system. There's people with basements, just please take your sump pumps off of our sewer system. So, I mean, realistically, that's, we don't really want to pay another
No.
10 or 11 million for a new sewer system anytime real soon,
But
or an
doesn't-
expansion.
It doesn't make any sense to me if we have 14 that we identified and if they are doing that again, and we find that again, then they need to,
Well-
there needs to be a fine of some sort. I mean, that's,
Yeah, it may not be the same, it may not be the same one.
no, but I mean, Dave referenced that it could be
I-
when he goes back.
I'll
that it
give
could
what
be-
I'm gonna take that back, 'cause that may not have been politically correct.
Well, no, but I mean, I think
Never
if
seen
that
that
is,
statement.
if that is the case, then we really shouldn't be
What-
paying
what
that.
Well, we don't know that. I mean, I'm just saying, it's possible. That's why we're gonna go back and redo it. You know, go back and do the survey again, just to be sure that they are, playing right.
One final question, that the crossover on Jefferson, is it possible that the sewer line is possibly going through the stormwater drain on that location, maybe leaking into the stormwater drain and possibly closing our beach down?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. It's all, like I say, it's all one big, I mean, you got the town, and when it rains, it's just like a bathtub. You got all this water here, and it's going into the sewer system, down the storm drains, and whenever you got a cross connection like that, that's a lot of bacteria.
Is that our beach is closing?
Well, you want to hear me, I moved here in '05, and between '05 and whatever, I never saw beach closing. And that's when we were dumping the water into the harbor. They never closed the beaches because
That's a lot of
Can I ask
things. I
another
mean,
question?
Yes.
A number of the things that appear in this report, this 2018 smoke test report, look like they're pretty easy fixes, and so is your department, going to contact, or have you already done that, and you're just giving us this because of?
if it's something like the,
There's like,
storm
front
gutters,
clean out,
if it's something we
cats
got,
off,
those we fix ourselves. We
Okay,
just do.
okay.
It's just easier than sending out, it's just an easy fix, it's cheap, and so we just fix it. If it involves going up to the house and like starting to pull gutters down and stuff like that, we'd rather the homeowner do that.
Okay, but you're going to do that, or you?
Oh, absolutely.
You're already doing it, or you're just?
Yeah, we're in the process of doing it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, any more questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Public comments. Oh, yeah.
We have Noel Lawrence.
Thank you. My name is Noel Lawrence, and my husband and myself have lived here.
Well, if you want to get closer to the mic or hold the mic.
Is that better?
Say
Should we
something.
speak louder? Okay,
Yes,
perfect. All right. My name is Noel Lawrence. Myself and my husband have lived here in Cape Charles for the last 9 years. I'm speaking tonight in favor of the proposal to sell the land where the shanty sits to the current leasing. We feel it makes sense to incentivize them to continue making capital improvements to the property. Owning the property gives them the incentive to do so. It also replaces lease income with property tax revenue and gets the town council out of managing a private business via lease negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Pete Bauman.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, two things. First of all, the shanty, I feel the same way. To sell it for a short-term, potential short-term profit, as opposed to continuing the presence of the business there. Because if all that ends up happening ultimately is that another private concerned person, whatever, buys the property and then ends up charging higher rent, which, I mean, that's America. Ultimately, they're going to take the profit, the town's not going to take the profit. And you've already got a more than flourishing business there, and a lot of the people in the community love it, and I'd like to see that relationship continue. Thank you on that. I had signed up about, I just put ESSO, the CATS, Eastern Shore State Organization. I'm the president. I don't do nearly what Sandy does. She's like a person working full-time, 2 full-time jobs on that. My feelings are different. I'm not really good about asking for money. I mean, all I wanted to say is that I think that there's the reason I got involved in what I do is for the cats. It's not for people. It's that I don't want to see them dead. I like the idea of spay neutering as a means of keeping them from not only procreating but also being subject to disease and just miserable lives and what have you. And basically what we're coming down to here is that you want to do the spay neuter and then have sort of a symbiotic community relationship where in exchange what we do is feed the cats that are there, keep them largely disease-free by, again, that's Sandy. I mean, there's so much that gets done that doesn't even come out of the budget, which is, largely goes to the spay-neuter operation. And, I look at it and I say to myself, what are we going to do if we're not allowed to feed them? Are we going to return to a situation where, okay, we'll start a feral spay-neuter program, maintain a feral spay-neuter program, and then have animal control come in behind and kill them? Or shall we just let them languish and get, filthy and unloved and disease-ridden? And it's not so much for me, but it's a lot of work doing this. And like I said, I'd like to see a little bit of buy-in. I hear some of the complaints from the community about, some of children are gonna die because there's cats or what have you. And, but somebody commented before, I forget, it might have been you, about, Mayor, about animals attracting other animals because of food being out. Well, we don't just disperse piles of food. We go out and we feed the cats, and then we come behind and we pick up the bowls. And I've never seen birds. Yes, I've never seen any other animal. I'm not sure, like coyotes, or I'm not sure exactly what it is you might be talking about. We don't have that much of a feral dog population. Thank you very much. You guys have been here a long time, and there's a lot of people who want to talk.
Thank you.
Good evening.
John Hairston.
I would stay for John, but I didn't get.
Hello, John Dempster, owner operator, Cheney Seafood Restaurant, 32 Manor Road. I just wanted to thank you guys once again for this opportunity and to just kind of reiterate a few points that I think are really important. I think, when it comes to the potential sale of the property, I think what we have really is a win-win situation. It's an opportunity for a piece of land that is already allocated to the business for the next 33 years to put $262,000 into the pocket now of the town that you guys can use for what you need. That number is based on a verified appraisal. We're not asking for any deals here. And on top of that, we have made the commitment that we'll begin an addition as soon as Monday. I have plans submitted to Jeb, expect approvals tomorrow. We can begin an addition, have shovels in the ground next Monday that will immediately supplement the amount of money that we are paying now in rent with increased tax revenue and increased job creation. We stood here 8 years ago, and I will tell you right now that we were a risk. We were the only people willing to take the risk on that land. We were the only people that submitted an offer to build on that land. We invested a large amount of money in that land. I'll tell you today, I think we're a much safer bet. The biggest thing for us really comes down to the equity. I'm sure a lot of people here have refinanced a mortgage to remodel a home or to add an addition on as their family has grown. We're not in a position, our family has grown, Cheney has grown beyond what we ever could have considered it would have grown. We have $750,000 invested on that piece of property that we cannot leverage with the bank without the land underneath it. And that's where we're at. We'd like to continue growing this business. We'd like to do it responsibly. I also think that we're in a unique position for the town of Cape Charles where we need an additional 100 to 200 seats in restaurants in season, but we don't need more restaurants opening with that many seats throughout the course of the year to cannibalize the people who are trying to be open. We'd love to be open in January and February. But, we can't be cannibalizing ourselves. We're in a unique position where we have the infrastructure already there to do that on the property, but we need the equity in the land in order to do so. So I just want to thank you all again. I know it's been a long process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adrian Rose.
Hi, I'm Adria Rose, 215 Monroe. I'm here to support the sale of the land to the Humber Crab LLC. As I'm sure you all know, I've been working at the Cheney with Mike and John since before opening day, June 1st, 2012. I wanted to share some thoughts on these guys and what it means to successfully operate this business. The Cheney has been extremely successful because of the team and leadership that they've built over the years. I'm very proud and fortunate to be a huge part of that team. I've worked in a lot of restaurants, both successful and not. The difference is in the owners. Mike and John are special. Guys like them don't come along every day. There's no detail that's too small for them and nothing they don't strive to improve on and grow on. I tell you that because it's important to me that you understand if they say they will improve the business and add an addition, increase taxes, increase revenue and jobs, whatever, they actually will. I've been with these guys for 8 years. They're my friends. They're my family. They've never told me they would do a thing that they didn't follow through with. They work hard to take care of everyone involved. I've been with them on every holiday, every birthday, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas morning. They are truly my family. The point is, that's the sort of environment that's been created by this business, not just for me. There are so many of us in that building that count them as family, that count them as friends. That's the love that they've created. These guys are truly people ahead, that put people ahead of the money. I remember the concrete slab that existed before the Cheney. I partied on that slab. Chris Manning can attest to that. These guys have worked hard for years to turn that into something truly special, and I know how important the land is to them in order to continue that awesome growth. I look forward to what they've planned, and hope that Shani and its family can continue to grow and be a huge part of our town.
Thank you.
That's everybody that's signed up.
Sorry, I didn't cross it.
All right, this letter is from David Gay. This is about the sale of the real town property. That I was not able to attend the public hearing on March 14th, 2019 regarding the sale of a portion of the town harbor lot occupied by the Shanty Hungry Crab LLC, and would like to add my comments to the public record. Great changes are about to happen in Cape Charles in the next few years. The availability and development of the railroad property will create many new possibilities that we could not have imagined when the current comprehensive plan was completed in 2006. In the past, the town council has been criticized for either selling town assets on the cheap or failing to acquire property at little cost when available. I hope history does not repeat itself. Cape Charles property values are increasing, a fact that is not lost on the partners of the Hungry Crab LLC. When the Hungry Crab LLC entered into the original agreement with the town to build the restaurant on the town harbor, they knew they had a sweetheart deal, low rent and a parking lot that is maintained by the town. So what has changed? Many people see the potential of Cape Charles developing to the south and want to acquire a piece of that opportunity. Frankly, $262,000 for that piece of real estate is an insult to the taxpayers. Several realtors have said that this piece of the harbor could be worth 3 or 4 times that amount in just a few years. Rather than sell off valuable town property piecemeal at bargain prices, the council should look 5, 10, or even 20 years down the road and consider the impact that decision will have on our town. Many businesses rent their brick and mortar facilities rather than own them. Why not continue the relationship in rent? I am sure that the Shanty will not close their doors after investing $750,000 in their business. Please keep in mind that the Planning Commission is working on an update to the 2006 Comprehensive Plan. Perhaps it would be wise to defer any sale of town property in the Harbor District until an updated version of the plan can be reviewed. This way the town remains in control of the land and its ultimate best use. Thank you for considering my option.
Rick? Consent, approval of consent agenda. In the consent agenda, we got the approval of the agenda format, approval of the minutes, approval of January 31st, 2019 financial report, approval of monthly department reports, approval of appointment of Zach Collins as the zoning administrator, approval of vendor request for commercial activity in open space and zoning district.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Unfinished business. Vacation of public right-of-way on tax parcel 9-8-182.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is the action directed following the public hearing on the 14th of March, where there was a public hearing on the request to vacate public access of the parcel in question. The parcel in question is what was deeded from the town of Cape Charles to Northampton County in 1996. It's functioned as a, at that point, functioned as a access road to be able to get to what was then the Stiff Park. And it just served as a public right-of-way. It is in the VDOT secondary road system. Vacating the public right-of-way means it's removed from the VDOT secondary road system. Per the VDOT regulations, the town council would approve a letter of support that would be sent to the Virginia Department of Transportation to vacate the public right-of-way.
Staff recommends council will authorize me to sign a letter of support to the Virginia Department. Did you read that already?
I said a lot, but
Yeah, yeah.
staff recommends the town council.
So I got your motion.
I make a motion to accept the recommendation.
It's been a long day. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I just make a note, in the attachments, Lily, there's yellow highlight section that doesn't come out. So we've got to change the,
I didn't know we got that, I was like, what's that?
yeah, there's a highlighted section in the attachment. You can't read through the highlight.
You can't? Okay, I have to look at that.
You can Xerox, or you make a copy of it, and you can see the black through it.
It looks like it's redacted. It's like,
Okay, mine's perfect. Yeah, you got me down. You don't need to.
This minutes. This,
Oh, hello. Sale of town-owned real property, .40 acres portion of tax map parcel 8A-A-10.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, the background report just goes over some well-trod land as far as the history of the lease process and the economic contribution made by the Hungry Crab LLC to the town treasury. It states that a portion of lot 10 described in the subject lease area as Exhibition A was had a formal commercial appraisal done. The fair market value stated of $262,000. The town submitted that appraisal to W.R. McCain and Associates for an independent review, and the review concurred with the fair market value. Prior to the sale of any public property, a public hearing is required. That public hearing was held on March 14, 2019, as required. It was advertised prior to that date. No portion of the town-owned parking lot or the Waterman's Memorial Site was included in the proposed transaction. And at this point, the town council is not accepting unsolicited offers to purchase any part of the parking lot on lot 10. Most of the comments at received at the public hearing on the 14th were in opposition to the sale, but not all. Staff recommendation at this time, the staff recommends to council not to approve the sale of the town-owned real property as described in Exhibit A at this time until a meaningful and relevant for the current conditions railroad yard and harbor area sector planning process is completed and implemented through any necessary zoning ordinance changes. The Planning Commission at their regular monthly meeting on March 5th, 2019 committed to begin the process of reviewing the railroad yard and harbor area planning and zoning and requested that this be done in a joint exercise with the Town Council and the Harbor Area Review Board. Upon completion of that process, the town will have current integrated information upon which to make land use, land acquisition, and land disposition decisions. Should council move forward with any action at this time, the sale should not be for some less than the current market value of $262,000, as determined and concurred with by professional appraisers.
Can I get a motion to, the recommendation from staff is not to sell the property. I'm requesting a motion for the sale.
I got a motion recommending to sell the .4 acres to the Hungry Crab LLC.
Any discussion?
Well, lots of discussion.
Yeah.
All right, so let me lead you off with mine, okay? I've spent a lot of time with this. I've gone through the lease and what have you, and submitted information, but I had to put down on paper all my thoughts, and that's what I want to read into the record, and I'll give you a copy of this afterwards. We can go from there. I looked at, first of all, what's my guiding principles? So I said, decisions are to be made in the best interest of the town and not towards the benefit of any one person or entity. However, we do no harm to an individual or entity. Need to base the decision on assessed value of land and not on speculation as to what the future could hold regarding value and/or different use. And lastly, utilize the public's accepted harbor conceptual master plan as developed in 2006. So here are things that went into my decision. Unlike 2012, where the town advertised for business proposals and Hungry Crab responded, this is an unsolicited proposal for the town to consider. I believe a previous unsolicited offer in 2014 was not accepted. The current lease assigned in 2012 contains the following. Tenant acknowledges and agrees that the landlord has a compelling and substantial interest in controlling the development and use of the property in the harbor and surrounding areas. The lease locks in the use of the property as a seafood restaurant. Tenant has an option for 3 renewal periods of 10 years each, extending out to 2052. The town's financial benefits from the lease, currently based on terms of rent, is base payment of $6,000 annually and 1% gross sales, which over the past 3 years averages out to about $21,000. So from a practical business perspective, why does the public benefit with foregoing this revenue stream of $27,000 with the sale of this parcel? With the current stream of rent, the current proposed price of $262,000 will be returned every 10 years. The town is not even losing on property tax revenue since the tenant pays taxes on land and improvements. The lease specifically excludes a 12-foot wide public walkway and includes the right to install a golf cart path and pedestrian path along the northern border as coordinated with the tenant. And lastly, and to me the most important, is there's a high degree of uncertainty as to the future development of the harbor. That is the land surrounding the harbor, all of parcel 10 in the railroad property. So my position is, given the benefits of the current lease that allows the tenant in town to satisfy the intent of the public's harbor conceptual plan for a long period of time, the current source of town revenues received by rents and taxes, and the allowance for future decision-making on a sale of town property once plans surrounding the harbor start to firm up, at this point in time, I do not see why it's in the best interest of the town to accept an unsolicited offer to sell this specific parcel of land to any entity regardless of price, and agree with the staff's recommendation. I must have revised this easily 15 times to get to where I am today. So I've spent time, and that's really where I'm coming from.
So, but you didn't take any consideration for future meals tax based on the bill?
Correct. Meals or business license.
Which is going to surpass that set amount, 27,000.
Right, we receive a benefit from a business on that location. I'll agree with that.
Yeah, but we're also dealing with short, I mean, we're dealing with, there's so much to deal with on this. We got short seating with an ever-growing number of people coming into town, and they're starting, they're not happy when they come in. It got better last year, but it's going to be like the year before, where it was a nightmare. Trying to get out to eat and basically grow a in-town restaurant that's already proven itself, I think it would be very short-sighted on not selling this to them. So you can get the loan to do the build-out, to increase more seating for the tourists that are coming through here, plus the fact that we're going to have 50 full-time jobs rolling through here too. It's going to change the town from these tourists. It's going to end up trying to balance out the tourism versus the service industry. So, I mean, if we start diluting it with more restaurants, someone's going to fail along the way. It's just my opinion. So, I mean, I think we missed part of the equation, that we can reap more benefits over a long period of time to increase more taxes. What are we in the business for? We're a municipality. We're in tax collecting. What are we going to do? The thing's leased out until 2050? What are we going to do with it? We're going to continue just to be
I'm not looking to keep it to 2052. I'm looking until such time as we know what's happening in that particular area.
the comp plan is to have a restaurant there, so it's there.
And that's correct, and it fulfills that purpose right today.
But that's, a restaurant basically should be as a, not as a leased property through the town. If we turn around and have all these other ones, what do we hold on the land for? What is the actual purpose of holding on the land? That's the whole point. What is the purpose of us? We get nothing out of it other than what was in that lease agreement. So down the line, we've got the other 1.4 acres. That's the only thing that's left. The harbor's not gonna sell. I mean, we've got the other side.
I got all of parcel 10 sitting there. This is one little piece of parcel 10.
Correct. Which we stand to have a bigger upside than a downside, or stay in status quo. I mean, that's just how I see it.
I'll jump in. What a difficult thing to balance, and I appreciate your comments, Andy, about that, and all the work you've done, Paul. And I too, like you, I have agonized and researched, and so I want to give you guys at least my view of how I'm tackling this. First of all, you guys know, I mean, I know John knows, I've been, as I've said in public, I'm very open-minded to any proposal that's brought before the council, and will consider it with an open mind and to be very objective about it. It takes analysis and evaluation, critical steps, because we got to seek public input and the public good for the longest time, not for the immediate sense. And that's the hard balance for all of us. At the public hearing, we did have a number of people who spoke in opposition. And I know, as Steve and I have talked before, that's not a majority of our citizens, but it's a goodly number of citizens, engaged citizens who care enough to come here to give us their opinion on the issue, as happened tonight as well. So here are the things I look at when I'm going to make a decision about this, if, and I suppose we will make this decision tonight. My evaluation for disposing of public property, whether it's this one or any other one, is going to be like this. I consider us not developers, and for me a priority for ensuring all property in the town is productive and on the tax rolls. Okay, that's my first level of inquiry. And today, while I did not think that it was, and Paul's work revealed that it is, and that the Hungry Crab is paying both on real property and on the improvements for that property at our tax rate. So that issue's off the table. Okay. Another one, would sale this property induce or attract future or further development in the town by bona fide individuals or entities? That's kind of our economic development function. We spend a lot of time talking about Main Street and all these other things, but this is something that comes to us. This is on us. And, you know, I can't, this is my view. I'm not saying that this is correct, okay? But my view is those who are invested in our town or are the most likely to continue to make investment, and they are with us in moving forward. So that, I think this proposal is a bona fide proposal for a very legitimate purpose and a legitimate reason. Does the development or redevelopment of the property meet our town's goals? I looked through a lot of our documents that we have already done, and the harbor master plan and our conceptual plans, and having that kind of facility in that location, it does meet that. That's true. I have to balance that I don't know what will happen with the railroad property. And I think that is significant as we look at the whole thing. When not just that 4/10 of an acre, but all of the town's property there adjacent to the railroad property. That's important to me, you all know that, and I'm having a hard time balancing this little piece against the development of that. Is our lessee in this situation harmed by not selling to them? Yes. That's a really hard question to answer. Does it, in the present immediate sense, you've said, you know, Paul, well, they're still here, they're here. Yes, that's true. But it's unknown about what the future would be. So it's certainly not my intention to do anything that's harmful to any business or folks who have come here, invested their life and their money and their, you know, blood, sweat, and tears. Then finally, can we as a council impose development guardrails if we sell any property? And so you know, I've heard a lot of you people who are in the audience talk about, well, you sold this one, you sold that one, and why didn't you buy the Myers property, you know, this and that, and all these different things that have happened over the years since I've been here. And some of it is fear, okay, about what will happen and we don't know. Some is fear about it's going to be worth so much more, but we don't know that today. We don't know, period. Some of it is that we just don't want other people to have it and maybe flip it and make more money off of the town and the town's citizens and so on and so forth. And so I take all that in, but I do know this. There are, I'll call them guardrails that can be done to property. I would just point out when the town council did this, when the Ray Fields built their new store, it's not new anymore, but new store by selling them a couple lots down there. And some of the guardrails there was a first right of refusal if that property was sold, I believe, and there's some requirements about they had to build it in a certain amount of time, some things like that. So that can be done. I have two thoughts about that. Obviously, if we were to do that, the only way I would feel like we would really be responsible about balancing all of these needs was to either look at this first right of refusal at the same price, we sell it back to the same price. Not sure that would be an acceptable thing to John. The other thing that could be done, is done sometimes in these situations, is to have use limitations. We have a use limitation on this lease. It's in the town's interest to have a use limitation because that's what our plan speaks to. The type of use limitation that could happen here is a fee simple sale that is determinable as long as there are certain activities there. In this case, as long as there's a restaurant there. You see this sometimes in things like railroads where there's a reverter clause. It's not used for that, it comes back to the town. I'm not saying that would be an acceptable provision to the lessee either. But I am saying that it's on the tax roll. It does exist. There are ways to do it, but a simple fee sale I don't think is in the town's overall long-term best interest. That's how I got a decision like that.
So you don't feel like you were strapping it by not letting it grow?
I understand what you're doing.
Because, I mean, it's classic. I mean, it's just like the real estate debacle when we had commercial properties intermixed with residential. You know, the percentage now is down to 20%. You have to have at least 20% commercial, and the rest has to be, I tried to buy one of these places, I couldn't get a loan because it was 33% commercial.
But that's not the town's
Well,
policy, that's a mortgage policy.
It's mortgage policy, well, he's got the same problem with the mortgage policy. He doesn't have the land, so they're not gonna give him the money to reinvest in his own business. So in a sense, we are strapping him, we're keeping him at the level he is now, so he can't grow. So to me, that's tying his hands, because we're holding the property over his head. I mean, simple terms. I mean, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I understand.
I wanted to speak as well. I think we've all really struggled back and forth with weighing all of the pros and cons of this, and I respect the council and the mayor for doing that. And for Hungry Crab, which feels weird to call John and those guys Hungry Crab, but for coming forward and being respectful throughout the process as well. So I commend everybody on that. I've really struggled. I really struggled a lot with this. The thing that stands out most in my mind is the impact. When I looked at the Shanty and I look back to coming here in 2011 and the risk that they took in 2012 and were a catalyst in our economic development. And whether we like that or not is a fact. And they were a catalyst with other businesses. But if we were to put an economic value to the marketing and PR that the Shanty has gotten nationally, that brought people to Cape Charles, it's not measurable, Paul. It's not some numbers that fit into a formula like that. I apologize, but it isn't. But they have made an investment that has benefited without any doubt the tourism industry that we have today. And so that's always one of those principles for me, that's my guiding principle in doing that. Could have somebody else done that? Probably. but not with the integrity, as Adria spoke to, that they come to the table with, and also investing in another business, and bringing another restaurant at a time to do that. And go back to the land sale, because that's what this is about. The thing that was making me debate is the unknown of what's happening with the railroad. And I really did struggle with that. And then I started to think, well, they have a lease. It doesn't matter really, like what happens with the railroad in the next couple of years, because they have a lease and they're there. So why would that hold me back from making the decision that truly I feel is that we should sell the land at the appraised price, because the appraisal came in that way. I would like the stipulation of that we have first right of refusal at the same price. That would make it comfortable all the way around in balancing all the needs in my eyes.
As the storm foreman of St. Charles Council over 20 years, this is the hardest decision I've ever made. And I don't want to be here tonight. So, but the Shanty has done so much for the town. There's a bright future for the town in everything. The harbor area, I have a love for the harbor area. And everybody has repeated so many things that I can say. I am going to vote no on this, and I'm sorry. But I think for the betterment of the town, I just can't vote yes.
And so for the record, and John, you know this because my struggle was less than everyone else's, and I told you this in closed session, that I was not in favor of selling the property at this point in time, at any time during the debate that we've had, and I still feel that way. And I agree with a lot of the things that were said. I mean, and there's no doubt about what you brought to the town, but there's lots of people that have brought lots of stuff to the town. I'm not taking anything away from you, but there are a lot of other people that take risks. Anybody that opens a business in Cape Charles takes a risk. But when you look at not only the railroad property, which is in a state of flux, but when you look at the non-state of flux of what's going on the south side of the harbor and see the improvements that are being made over there daily, there's too much going on here for us not to get a little further down the road and have a better comprehensive view of what we're doing and what's going on. Everything around the harbor looks good. You know, it is, you talk about selling public property and non-performing assets, and I'm all about that, but, should we sell the beach?
No, it's your number one asset.
That doesn't generate any money.
Yeah, sure it does. People come in and go to the machine. Now they're
Well,
going to stand in line.
Now, I'm not going to argue with you, Andy, I'm tempted to stay here, but, that was just an aside, all things considered, everything that's going on here, it is not the right time. John, I told you that, I'm telling you that again.
I, as mayor, do not get to vote in this situation, but I do get to speak. I believe this council is making a big mistake. I feel that we cannot hold up the whole time based on what may not, what may happen with the railroad, because we've not done our due diligence of updating the comp plan. We may want to wait to what's going on with the comp plan. This is a guy that's come here when the time was nothing. Nothing. He went by himself. There's other people sitting out here in the audience that's actually come here and done the same thing and took chances on the time. And you know what? We've sold their property. And so, for me, for this council, I feel like we're being short-sighted.
We haven't voted yet.
No, I don't. He said no.
And there's a motion on the table
Yeah, I haven't voted yet.
So let's
but
not
I'm just
go
saying.
that the council has decided that yet.
I'm telling you right now, I got two people sitting on each side of me just said no.
I realize we got two here as well, so.
It takes five. So.
But I'm just saying, we need to do due diligence to be in the business of helping businesses grow. And not to do it at the benefit of taxpayers not getting screwed over in any way on this. There was an appraisal done for $262,000. We had that appraisal check, that come back as being so. So nobody's getting messed over or pulled over the wool. Yeah, realtors are right there. We had a letter written into comment tonight that said the realtor says in a few years it's going to be much higher.
It's all speculation.
Realtors are going to include the building into your property. Right now, we do not own the building. We own the property. So I don't know. I just feel like that we need extra seats in time, being part of a business that has a restaurant on it. And there's a weight there, there's a weight here, there's a weight at Tim's, probably a weight at the other Tim's, the Hook, and so, it's gonna have 50 more seats. It's gonna have more meals tax. And I believe wholeheartedly, and I don't know this because I'm not an assessment person, but I believe wholeheartedly that once that building and property becomes one, the assessed value of that property is going to go up, and the tax property, the property taxes will go up. Just my thinking. When I looked at the tax assessment that you brought, and I know what we're paying on our third acre lot on Peach Street, and what that is, I thought it was peanuts, to be honest with you, but just saying. So I've said my 2 cents.
So call the question.
That's all.
Restate the motion. Please.
We have a motion, we have a second. If we have
Would
any.
you restate your motion, please?
Basically, then we authorize the sale of the 24 acres of the Hungry Fat LLC for set amount.
Amenable to any amendments?
Anybody want to throw that? Anybody want to throw that amendment? On here.
Wow, is that a yes?
Yes.
Well, Tammy can give me one.
I would amend it to be that the first right of refusal to the town at the same amount, 262.
Any period of time for the duration of the property or a set period of time?
Any thought about giving the current leasing a say in that, whether or not that's acceptable to him?
Well, yeah, I think we have, so that would be our offer. What we would be voting on is our offer would be.
We're not voting on an offer. We're voting on whether we're going to sell it or not. And the amendment would be, are we going to sell it
With that term.
With that term.
with that term?
Right.
We don't know that term's agreeable to him.
Right. Well, can it be contingent upon that term? Is that the terminology?
Contingent of his agreement to that.
To the first right of refusal back to the town.
Well, we don't have to make it a contingency for us.
Yeah.
We're just talking about any term, not just that, but if
Right.
there were any terms, it would be, we were gonna sell it. This is the way we'll sell it. We know that it's at price, fair market value, and any other terms associated with it, or not.
What's the amended?
Is it just the land or land and building?
That's just a
All we
line.
have is the land.
No, one is the one.
That's all we're selling.
It's just a line.
262. No, it wouldn't be the building.
Now, go for that. But as amended.
I'm just trying to get.
So we got a motion on the floor to sell the shandy, and to sell the land in the shandy.
The first right of refusal is back to the town for the amount purchased.
First one, $50 in time for the amount purchased. And do I have a second?
Do we second that again? Is that, I second that.
You have to second it.
Okay, we got a motion, we got a second. Roll call.
Buckles, yes.
Holloway, yes.
No,
And then, Roseman, no.
Burge, yes.
Let me know it was 3-3 and 5, really don't matter. I'm a yes, but it don't matter, it needs to be 5-1.
Can you all speak up? We can't hear.
So it was tied 3-3, it has to be a super majority vote.
We got it.
Super majority votes 5-1, so the sale of the Shannon parcel did not go through.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, conditional use permit for 615 Monroe Avenue.
Right. So this is a proposed development, approximately 960 square feet, two-story accessory dwelling unit in the rear of the property with a garage on the first floor and a dwelling unit on the second floor. Property is located in the R1 and the historic district overlay. The application was presented to the Planning Commission on February 5th, and the Planning Commission set a public hearing for March 5th. At the March 5th meeting, Planning Commission recommended approval for the conditional use permit as submitted. The proposed use is an allowable use in the R1 district with the approval of the conditional use permit. The proposed structure meets the setback requirements, height requirements, floor area requirements, and parking requirements of the zoning ordinance. If approved for a conditional use permit, the proposed accessory dwelling unit will require a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic District Review Board, and the staff is recommending approval as submitted.
I make a motion, we recommend approval of conditional use for that.
Second.
All in favor?
Wait,
No, discussion?
Excuse me. Could we have some findings for the record here? The staff report's given us some of those, but I think we should incorporate them as our own, please. First of all, it is allowable, it's in the R1. It already meets every other requirement other than it'll just have to have Historic District Review Board certificate of appropriateness. Fits well within our historic district, and it certainly helps to accomplish what we've been working on in terms of workforce housing and additional housing options in Cape Charles. And with that, call for the question. Sorry.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Text amendments to zoning ordinance Article 4, Section 4.4.5.
All right, so these are two text amendments in Article 4. So staff is proposing a text amendment to Article 4, Section 451, Table of Parking Standards, to include a separate nature of use designation for mixed-use development and create a parking standard for this use of one space per one-bedroom dwelling unit, otherwise 2 spaces per dwelling unit plus 1 additional space per 200 square feet of commercial gross floor area. Currently, retail uses are required to have 1 space per 200 square feet of gross floor area. Restaurants are required to have 1 space per 100 square feet of gross floor area. And general office uses are required to have 1 space per 300 square feet of gross floor area. So the recommended 200 square feet of gross floor area would be a good middle ground requirement between these typical uses in a mixed-use development situation. Staff is also proposing text amendment to Article 4, Section 4.5F1K to include a sentence stating the following. For new construction mixed-use developments, parking stalls for residential units shall be identified by appropriate signage. The proposed text amendment is intended to have developers clearly delineate between the parking required for residential units within mixed-use developments. The proposed amendment would help reserve specific parking spots for residents while deterring non-residents who are visiting the commercial uses from parking in those locations. Enforcement of this will be regulated not by the town, but by the HOA or whatever they're using. And the application was presented to the Planning Commission on February 5th. Planning Commission set a public hearing for March 5th, and at that meeting, Planning Commission recommended approval as proposed, and staff is also recommending approval of the text amendments as proposed.
I get a motion to approve the text amendments as proposed.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah. I'm having a little trouble with this exact, and it could be me, probably is, I'm all right with numbers, I can understand all the numbers part of it, but apply this to a real world case, if you will. It's suppose Patrick Hand's building, does that fit this condition if it were coming on after this amendment?
It would, yes.
What would be the difference then as opposed to what he's doing now?
So he would have to come up with, well, that's kind of the situation that brought this up, was that a lot of times when developers come in with a mixed-use development, they don't know what type of use is actually going to take over that area, whether it be retail or maybe an office space for like an attorney's office or something like that. Typically, they just do a white box, filled out, and then if I was someone looking for a property, I would say, hey, I've got an attorney, I'm an attorney and I'm looking for a space. This looks like a perfect spot. And then that would come into play where, hey, this requires this amount of parking. So that's kind of an after the fact of when they're really developing the site.
This is all on-site parking?
Yes, this is all on-site parking. So in that situation, it'd be 200 square feet of gross floor area for every commercial gross floor area and square footage. So that's how you would figure out how much parking is required for the commercial aspect, and then of course the residential aspect is.
And the residential parking spots then need to be signed so that
Yes,
they're identified as residential parking spots.
So they would have signage saying, it could be up to the developer, but it could say like A1 parking or something like that, or it could just be residential parking only, but that just delineates that.
Can I ask a question? So Zach, I get this for new construction, but we know that there are several places like on Mason, I'm thinking of the Parsons building particularly, where there is announced that there'll be some sort of commercial use, first floor, and other condominiums. And so what about those mixed-use buildings where we don't know that we can meet these standards? How are we going to deal with that?
This is specifically for new construction.
So are you going to leave the comment in the current ordinance that says, where there's something to the effect of where there's existing and it can't be met, it's like a combination of on-street and off-street, whatever you can come up with?
Yes, and there's also, the C1 district allows for shared parking.
Yes, okay. I just want to make sure, because that's a real problem.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Okay.
Opposed? Conditional use permit for 649 Randolph Avenue.
All right, this is to set a public hearing. The owners would like to convert an existing detached garage into an accessory dwelling unit, with the dwelling unit located on the second floor and the garage located on the first floor. A certificate of appropriateness was approved on February 19th at the Historic District Review Board meeting for the exterior changes that they're proposing to the existing structure, which specifically relate to it becoming an accessory dwelling unit. The proposed use of an accessory dwelling unit is an allowable use in the R1 district with the approval of conditional use permit. The proposed conditional use permit meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance for accessory structures and accessory dwelling units. Planning Commission has set a public hearing date on April 2nd for this application. And town recommends that or staff recommends that town council set a public hearing date for the next regular meeting date.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Can I ask one other question about this one?
Huh?
So, and I might have overlooked this, we have such a big issue in this. I might have missed this, but, so, thinking back about the meter issue. Right?
No, no.
We solved that. We solved that.
Yeah, so, this particular one said, something about it would recognize, additional untapped rental income for the owners, right? The description of the project, it was added before they purchased the lot, this garage, because of time restrictions, properties make an untapped source of rental income for the owners and additional incentives to control. Okay, so, just asking, is that really a unit that's gonna be available, do you know? For
rent. They, I believe, I'll have to look back on this, I just don't want to misstate it, but I believe that they had mentioned that they would want to rent this out long term as a long-term lease.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Any discussion?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I want to add that the staff report says that their meeting is on April 18th. The April meeting is actually going to be the 11th.
It's gonna be the,
April 11th.
So we'll still have time for that ad and all that stuff, though? Okay.
Okay, conditional use permit application 209 Mason Avenue, set public hearing.
Speaking of.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm doing this report because the applicant is the town planner and zoning administrator's land board. So, not mine. So, pinch hitting for Zach Connors right now. Staff received this application for ground floor apartment in the rear, as well as apartments above ground floor commercial at 209 Mason Avenue. It's a Parson building. The property is in the C1 zoning district, which allows residential units only by conditional use. It's the only conditional use in the C1 district. The comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance identifies certain conditions for the issuance of a conditional use permit. One, that it would not adversely affect the health, safety, or welfare of the persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed use, or adversely affect other land uses. Second, not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to proposed improvements in the neighborhood. And third, not be in conflict with the purpose of the comprehensive plan. The 2016 comprehensive plan promotes residential commercial use, mixed development along Mason Avenue corridor, and elsewhere speaks about the favorable and desired nature of a variety of housing options at a variety of prices. The off-street parking, the site allows for some off-street parking. But the Planning Commission at their March 5th meeting did review the application and set a public hearing date for Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019. They also made the recommendation to Town Council that the Randolph Avenue ingress and egress be improved to allow for a better access way for the on-site residential parking. Staff contacted, which is to say myself, not Zach, contacted the property owner about phasing that in, so after the improvements and the construction phase is over with, at that point the town would go in and improve the ingress and egress way. No point doing it now to have construction vehicles on the site again. So that's been agreed to by the property owner as a phased approach. Staff finds no, by way of item specifics, staff finds no reason to prevent this application from moving forward to public hearing. It should be noted that the Parson building received conditional use permit application or approval in the past for residential units above the ground floor commercial. The application must meet all procedural obligations before beginning work on the residential units. Upon approval of the conditional use permit, The applicant has 1 year to demonstrate progress toward completion of the project as stated in the code section, in the zoning ordinance section cited. The staff recommends that the town council review the conditions of permit application and set the public hearing date. Staff recommends Thursday, April 11, 2019 as the earliest date for the town council public hearing.
Before I ask a motion, I have a question. We're having a special meeting on the 4th.
We are.
And we're having a regular meeting on the
The
17th.
4th is a budget work session. April the 4th is a budget work session. So we can do a special meeting.
Can't make the advertisement.
Yeah, the advertisement, we have to have it
Yeah,
advertised.
but I was just saying that I guess we've said every other Thursday. Can we not do the special, can we not do it on the 17th?
That, we had to change it because of Holy Thursday. We talked about this in the past, and we have a resolution to change the meeting of the date.
Right, it was the 18th.
Well, the whole week is Holy Week for Easter.
Oh,
So,
So it would be at our regular meeting, which is gonna be on the 11th.
11th,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay.
Sweet and all right, can I get a motion, can I get a motion to, for town council to set the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
And just want to say, Larry, thank you for the parking situation there, the access road, because that was a concern that we can now take back and close the door with on planning commission.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Mr. Meyer, the applicant, was very amenable to the phase of project.
Because that's a crazy alley, with that 90-degree angle.
Okay, up next, April town council regular meeting date.
There you go, man.
It's all mine, how about that? Okay, the April town council regular meeting is currently scheduled for April 18th, 2019, which falls on Holy Thursday this year. In the past, we did not hold our meetings on Holy Thursday to allow members to celebrate annual Easter observance. Council was told and agreed to reschedule the April regular meeting to Thursday, April regular meeting to Thursday, April 11th. Pursuant to 15.2-1416 of the Code of Virginia, regular meeting dates can be changed by the adoption of a resolution and posting of the resolution on the door of the meeting location and newspaper at least 7 days prior to the new meeting date. Glenn, means I'm reading it. I'm requesting council to adopt a resolution. Can we get a motion?
So
I'll
moved.
send her document. This happens. Need a roll call vote.
Buckles, yes.
Holloway, yes.
Bennett, yes, but I would say that I'm gonna miss that meeting because I'll be at the Masters.
She wants that on record.
You want spring training, Paul?
Did you say? Grossman.
Bridge, yes.
All right. Resolution 2019-0321, changing the date of April 2019, Cape Charles Town Council regular meeting. Whereas the Cape Charles Town Council regular meetings are currently held on the third Thursdays of each month, and the agenda packets are usually sent out Friday of the week prior to the meeting. And whereas the April Town Council regular meeting is currently scheduled for April 18, 2019, which conflicts with the observance of Holy Thursday. And whereas, in order to ensure a quorum for the April meeting, a date change is necessary. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Cape Charles, Virginia, that the April Town Council regular meeting will be held April 11th, 2019, beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the Cape Charles Civic Center. I would like to make a note, a correction to this ordinance that it states that it's 2018 instead of, we can change that before I sign it, please.
Where does it say that?
It says right after whereas, one of them, it's the second
Oh,
line.
I see it, yes. The second whereas. I will fix it. Okay, sorry.
Well, raised. Larry, you got some?
I've got nothing to say tonight, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. I'll start from the right, Sheila.
Shoot. Well, I'm very appreciative of all of the folks who came out to hear. Can you hear okay, Bruce? No. You told me this. We need to talk into this thing so you can hear better.
I don't know why you have all the way set back.
I did. I'm all the way up. Is that turned on?
It's on.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. I'm
She's
appreciative.
the oldest guy in the audience.
Of so
you know,
many
she-
people that
That's all right, he's interested.
the comments that were made and the cordiality of everybody in coming to such really, really difficult decisions tonight. What an exciting time in the history of the town. Look how many conditional use permits are being talked about for housing and development and business expansion. And as tough as it is, I respect each of you and your opinions about this very difficult decision tonight. I know that each of you thought about it really hard. And so for that, I'm disappointed for John, but I'm hopeful that this won't impede his progress too much.
The only thing I have is congratulations to Zach on taking over as zoning
Oh,
administrator.
yeah. Thank you.
No comments.
Did you get a good raise for that?
Yeah, two things. I mentioned one of them when I was talking about the shanty, and that is the development that's going on the south side of the harbor. If you haven't looked at it, you need to go over there and look at it. It's unbelievable. One portion of that is a living shoreline. I mean, this is the same guy that's going to put our new breakwater in. He's doing a fantastic job over there. So, it's unbelievable, yeah. The other thing is, Dave, you and I have talked about water and wastewater for ever since I've been on council, I think. But I want you to know that it's only because of my concern, and I appreciate, and I know that you're concerned as well. So I don't want to do anything that will impede your progress to getting these issues resolved for I&I before we get another regulatory note, which I'm very much like to avoid. So
Thank you.
it's a lot of work. You know, it's magic. You know, because it's all underground. It can be done. It has to be done because I mean we're just losing too much water. I mean, if it was once in a while, it would be one thing. But all the time.
I just want to follow up on the short-term rental work session and getting that on board. I didn't get any response, kind of. I know we're in budget season, but when we can get that on, there's more and more, as I shared with you guys, conversations through cities and towns facing and developing ordinances to support the enforcement of for Airbnbs and short-term rentals. And I really think we need to not let it go too much further before we give some discussion to it and how it impacts our community, both from a financial sense, but that's not the biggest part, is our sense of community and who we are. And if we, you know, it would be interesting to know how many rentals we have now versus residents. But that changes the face of our community as we go forward. I don't want us to let it slip off our radar. The other thing is an exciting new event that Cape Charles Main Street is doing. It's the Love Run Walk. Miss Carol out there is on the committee that leads those efforts, and that's on April 27th. And it'll start down at the Love Sign. So it's the first of that kickoff. And the funds raised for that will go to support the maintenance of the Love Fund. You may not know that it costs $1,500 this year for maintenance on that, but nothing had been done since it really started, so everything needs TLC, but that $1,500 doesn't come from nowhere, so that's why they started the event.
Okay, I'm not gonna harp on it.
I had a couple of quick things. First of all, I want to thank council for a long, hard deliberation over this sale of property. Sometimes we're all not going to agree. It's, so, and I'm good with that. The other thing I want to bring up is, can you all hear me?
No.
No.
Okay. I'm mumbling, all right, so, sorry about that. The other thing, I wanted to, thanks Dave, for your, presentation tonight. And I would like for, council to kind of open up to the purses a little bit to get some of this stuff fixed, especially, the cross sections and so going through the stormwater. And I would like for residents to do their part. And if they have sumps, to please unhook them. If they have gutters, please disconnect them and let them go in the water or in the road. It's going to save us in the long run. As most of you know in here, we spent $21 million on a wastewater treatment plant, and I'm sure it's going to be another 10 or 12 to upgrade it, and I don't think any of us wants that coming anytime soon without actually having to from the addition of homes or businesses. So,
I do have one thing. Dave, do you have any way of tracking who's been hooked up to some pumps? Can you keep track of that? I want to see if we have repeat offenders, because we might have to come up with an ordinance or a fine of some kind if they keep repeating the problem.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's just crazy. You have to go back out and do that again.
And I'd like to make sure that I saw someone post this on Facebook last week, but that we do kind of, from a town perspective, a campaign on reminding people not to let grass clippings and yard clippings go into our streets, because it happens. We all should have the responsibility with whoever is doing our lawn or we're doing ourselves. But I don't think people make that equation. You know, we're guilty of it. Until I saw that, I was like,
And the lawn companies.
right. So you have to, it's the responsibility. And I'd like to see us as a town make one of those blanket communications out there. I know we probably put it in the Gazette already, but Facebook and getting people to share it.
I didn't give you my time.
I didn't take it, but it needs to be done. We're all talking about how to help Dave. All three of us.
Zach, congratulations. I think that's been stated. And thank you, Larry, for the work you have done and Deb has done for the budget preparation. It was very nice. I have a few announcements. March 27th is Mayor's office hours. I know it says it in April, but there will not be any office hours in April. March 27th will be the last day. I will be holding periodically town hall sessions here, about every 3 months or so. So that'll be that. Maybe next winter we'll resume if it seems like it needs to be. April 4th is a town council work session at 6:30 here. April 11th is the town council regular meeting, 6:30 here. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.